Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll upload the presentations. So the final session today, I'd like to introduce to you Teresa Nguyen. She's from Denver, Colorado, identifies as a Vietnamese American woman with a disability, and her pronouns are she, her, hers. Teresa received her Master of Public Health from the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus, and her work is focused around healthcare policies and systems improvement for vulnerable populations. She has experience in both federal and state level health program and policy development, and is currently a curriculum developer at the Colorado Office of Employment First, training community members and healthcare providers on the intersection of work and health for people with disabilities. In her free time, Teresa enjoys cooking, traveling with her dog, Milo. I can't believe I forgot his name. So I will turn it over to you, Teresa.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, hi everybody. So honored to be here. Thank you so much, Linda, for inviting me and allowing me to share my story with you all today. I hope the slides are up. I can't see on my screen, but I will just trust that they are. Awesome. Awesome, sounds good. So I'm gonna open with letting you all know a little bit about me and my story. And then we'll go into, some tips that I think are really crucial for somebody with a disability to live in the community and engage in the community and obtain and be successful in employment. So we'll start with a little bit about me. Again, I'm Teresa Nguyen. I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I'm currently here right now. So really, really happy to land back into my hometown after a little bit of traveling and working elsewhere. I have my bachelor's from the University of Colorado Boulder, and that is in integrative physiology. I went on to receive my master's of public health from the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus, majoring, or I guess specializing and focusing on community and behavioral health. This is kind of what sparked my entire path to a career in disability policy and programs. Oh, sorry, hopefully, can you all still hear me? Okay. Okay, awesome. So a lot of my work since my master's has been in disability policy. You have heard in the bio that I have a special interest in healthcare systems and programs for people with disabilities, but I also work in employment policy, education policy, and pretty much all systems that pertain to disability in adulthood and then also in childhood as well. We can go to the next slide, please. I would say the biggest thing that most people notice about me is that I have a disability. You probably can't see it in Zoom, but I use a power wheelchair. I was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, or OI for short. This causes my bones to be very brittle. So I deal with that on a daily basis. I use a power wheelchair for mobility, and I'm pretty short. I am 3'3", so navigating the world is a little difficult for me. Life with OI really means that there are a lot of health appointments at all times. I have many health specialists that I deal with. It also involves unintended advocacy. I don't even really set myself out there to advocate every day, but it seems like I have to living a life with a disability. And then life with OI means that I have a lot of community support to help me live my life and reach my goals that I've set for myself. I grew up in a Vietnamese immigrant family. My parents are both immigrants from Vietnam. And while I was born in the United States, my household was a non-English speaking household. And so with that foundation, I really learned self-advocacy in a whole nother perspective. Usually, I think many of my peers with disabilities learn about advocacy maybe during school, maybe a little bit later in life. But because my parents did not speak the language, I really needed to begin to learn the systems for myself and for them at a very young age. I probably started interpreting my medical appointments maybe when I was 10, which is, a pretty hard responsibility. I mean, a lot of the health decisions were interpreted to my parents, but also I had maybe of a better understanding of what was involved than my parents. And so it was kind of dual responsibility to really make those decisions. And at a very young age, that was quite the experience for me, learning about all of these systems. And again, not only health, but education as well. I didn't really know what advocacy meant, but I did know that I wanted to be in a classroom with my peers. I wanted to be in the same topics and course levels as all of them. I wanted to be challenged just like all of them. And so in that way, that was me, kind of promoting self-advocacy and the education system. And then of course, independent living and housing and employment as well as I grew older. And so with that very early life lesson of self-advocacy, I decided to go to college, pursue higher education, and really pursue a career in healthcare. That obviously fluctuated all over the place in college. I'm sure you can imagine that your plans change as you're in the middle of college, as you take other courses, they kind of steer you in different directions. I think I went in with this dream of becoming a doctor, and then it changed to a pharmacist, and then it changed to public health at the very end. So just kind of having the opportunity during college to explore all of those topic areas was very helpful for me. An example of just kind of that exploration was, I really changed my mind about medical school when I ran into an accessibility issue with a human anatomy course in my undergraduate course load. And, back in, 2008, 2009, power wheelchairs didn't really have the seat elevator feature yet. And so, as you can imagine, it was quite the time to navigate a cadaver table at a very low height in a wheelchair. And I think it took like 2 months to be able to come up with a solution. And 2 months, that's huge in a semester of courses. That's almost half the semester. And so it took a really long time for the school and the department and the legal team to really come up with a plan for me. But I was very adamant on trying this out. How am I going to really function in the medical world if I can't even take a class that prepped me for the medical world? And so in that way, it was a hard lesson to learn that I knew that I could reach my goals of becoming a provider in the medical field, but I would also probably be very tired and exhausted from navigating like the student life and then also the advocacy life. And so I decided I didn't have energy for that. I was interested in healthcare and impacting that system. And I think public health was emerging in the time. And so I did a lot of exploring in terms of little projects, contracts, consultancies, to really talk about my lived experience navigating the different systems as a young adult with a disability, specifically the healthcare system, because I'm sure you all are well versed in the difficulty of navigating the pediatric side of healthcare and the adult side of healthcare. And those systems are very different. And so as I was making my own kind of transition into adulthood, I was also educating quite a lot about it from my own lens. And so that really led me to a career in public health. I've held positions in state government, working for Colorado Medicaid Department. It was a really exciting time. I got to witness a bill passing of my program, Money Follows the Person. And so that was sustained in Colorado, and I was a part of it. And it was just the most rewarding first adult job experience out of my master's that I have experienced. I've also held positions in the federal government. I've worked for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services at the Administration for Community Living. So you all know the DD Act very well and how that came about and all of the partners involved. I was a grant officer for the DD Act programs, specifically the DD councils for 28 states. And so that brought me to DC. That was a very exciting time. And currently I'm in an academic position at a university, kind of training and teaching a lot of our community entities on employment and healthcare for people with disabilities. Oddly enough, I am transitioning out of that role next week. I will be continuing onto a new role as a researcher for the Community Living Policy Center at Brandeis University. And so really excited to kind of continue that path in academia and really progress kind of the data and the research to inform community living policy nationwide. Next slide, please. Hopefully the slides are still there. I can't see them. Yes, I can see them now. So next slide, please. I would say my most exciting new life update is that I am a homeowner, a very new one at that. And this, a whole new process, has taught me a lot about community support and how, you know, the network that you have in your life and that the network that you purposely build is really the key to a lot of adulthood milestones, especially for people like me who live with a lifelong disability. And so these are just pictures of quite the home projects that I've been up to my ears on for the past month, but it really emphasizes that community network that really made it possible for me to be able to reach this giant milestone of mine. And while self-advocacy that I talked about in my early years kind of helped propel my life forward, I personally believe the key to a lot of my success is having a community and network of supports. And this was really only possible, and I think this is so important to distinguish. Building that community of supports is really only possible after discovering kind of your own pride in disability. And for those that, you know, are in my community, my peers with disabilities, myself included, my friends, my colleagues, you know, this disability pride really happens in early adulthood. So a little bit later than I think most people would imagine. I was born with my disability, and it took like 20 years for me to really find that pride. And thank you very much. And for me, it really happened when I decided to take a risk with the encouragement of a really good friend in the disability community to join a very random travel group, all with disabilities, traveling to another country. And this new experience really taught me a lot about, well, it taught me, one, how others with disabilities different from myself lived. That was huge, and that piqued my interest in truly exploring my community in a bigger level than just myself and the friends that I had, per se, that I had surrounded myself with. It also exposed me to accommodations and different barriers that folks with disabilities lived with. And then in turn, as we connected over a very strange experience of exploring a new country, we really bonded over, and it really turned out, as you all know and can imagine, that we face the same barriers no matter what disability we really have. And we're all really pushing for that community inclusion and independence that is still really not fully present in our society today. And so I would say kind of that pride and building that community is kind of the key into all of these other systems navigations that you have to do as an adult with a disability. I highly recommend that, you pay attention to your community and pay attention to those who are interested in learning about disability and different people. The Vietnamese culture of mine really, and I think this is what propelled my desire to build that community for me, but the Vietnamese culture really emphasizes a giant community of people who are committed to your successes and your goals, disability or not, right? That's why the intergenerational household is so popular within the Asian culture. It's really that finding that network that's so committed to your goals, your life, your desires. And as I kind of learned about, the disability community and kind of grew into my own pride, I also tried to incorporate a lot of other people in my life into this bubble of supports. I was highly comfortable with my disability a little bit more. I was really open to talking about it with my peers, classmates. You have to kind of talk about it in the university setting with your professors when you're talking about accommodations. So practice kind of makes you a little bit more comfortable in terms of growing into that pride. And my lifelong friendships from college and graduate school are extremely important to me, and again, are in that bubble of supports that I talk about. Being in my life means really you have to get deeply integrated into how I live with a disability. Pretty soon after hanging out with me for a while, you learn that it's pretty consistent and normal to make sure restaurants or theaters or whatever are wheelchair accessible. So that's now, I think, like ingrained in all of my friends' heads. They understand the horrible transportation access for power wheelchairs and having to navigate around that. That impacts a lot of what we do and how we hang out. And then they're there when the unpredictable happens with a medical crisis. And so, again, really allowing those people that you are surrounded by to really get to know you in a deeper level, I think helps form that bubble of support that's needed as you move through these transitions. But it doesn't only just take friends and family. A lot of my external people in my community provide a lot of support for me. My hairstylist is really good at wheelchair haircuts, so I don't have to transfer, and she's just really adapted around that. My coffee barista knows that I prefer a straw and a lid, and so they're super, helpful in terms of getting that extra step taken care of for me. In this new house, the mailman knows to deliver mail right to my door versus the mailbox, because it's just an extra step that's super helpful for me. And and my wheelchair access. And so truly, again, I really invite you all to get to know your community and have them be a part of your life and how you live with a disability. I think it's highly helpful. A lot of my professors actually who had to accommodate me in college have helped me think through house modifications because they kind of learned, you know, what I needed throughout college. Or they've aided me in graduate school accommodations because they were so used to me in undergrad. And so again, that community is just naturally built in wherever your environment and wherever you spend your time. But I think that is the key to many things. And I lost the slides again, Alex, but hopefully you can put them back up again. Okay. So I think this slide is really to demonstrate that the first and foremost, most important system or aspect of living life with a disability to focus on is really health. Health impacts all of the other systems and things that you want to do in life, right? Employment, housing, independent living. It impacts how you interact with your community. It impacts your education and how adapted it is for you. Next slide, please. And so just some tips that I've learned over the years for health management to really create that foundation for, you know, kind of community living and then moving on to employment is practice makes perfect. So really, you know, starting at, I don't know, age 13, 14, you know, I really encourage families and youth with disabilities to really start leading their own healthcare appointments. You know, are they having time allotted to ask their own questions? Can adolescents with disabilities describe what their disability is in their own words to other people? Can they describe their concerns and their needs to be healthy with their doctor? Is there space for them to do that in the health appointment? You know, are there discussions at home or in the doctor's appointments about how to schedule health appointments on your own? You know, practicing at home, calling and making an appointment together is super helpful. I learned this over the years. I think I practiced throughout the whole 4 years of high school because I knew I was going to be away from my mom when I moved to college. And so we really needed to practice these skills as I was growing up. And then of course, you know, is transportation coordinated? Or, you know, does the adolescent know how to get to their own healthcare appointment? You know, is it that you have to coordinate with a family member and that's all consistent and settled? Is it public transportation that they have to take and have that kind of sorted out? And again, starting early is highly recommended because these skills take time to build over the years. The second item under this kind of health management is emergencies. Know what to do in an emergency and in a crisis. So, you know, this, and I'm happy to point you into some resources at the end of this presentation. If you have heard of GOT Transition or the National Healthcare Transition Alliance, they have some amazing tools for youth and families to start this health conversation, including kind of an emergency medical document that you can kind of download and fill in as you go. But the things that are important to know under, you know, planning for an emergency is, you know, who can you contact? Who can the adolescent contact when they're in a crisis? Does the adolescent know their medications that they're taking? Or is it listed somewhere that they can carry around? Decision makers, you know, who is that? What is the adolescent's preference in this? And then of course, just contact information for all parties involved when there's a crisis. That really gave me a peace of mind in college, being away and knowing that, I knew a little bit of what to do in an emergency, being an hour away from my parents. The third category under this is understand how healthcare is paid for. I put this in here because I don't expect young people to really know all about insurance, but I think the idea that employment can lead to benefits such as healthcare insurance and healthcare funding is an extremely important thing to learn at a young age. For me, that really propelled my desire to go to work. I knew what I wanted within my healthcare team and my management. And sometimes that meant that I needed private insurance to be able to access the doctors that I wanted to have in my life. And so that really created this priority for me to find a job and an employment position that would support the healthcare access that I need to stay healthy. So I think that's a really important discussion for everybody to have in their families when you're supporting somebody with a disability. And then the last aspect of this health management piece is, do you and your family member understand how health interacts with work or community living? So again, when you're out there on your own in a new job or in a new classroom, are you able to talk about the equipment and the supplies and the medications that are needed for you to succeed in your job or your class or whatever it is that you're doing in adulthood? Are you able to articulate that in some way or plan for that? Do you know what the accommodations request is in a higher education setting? Because they're very different than when you are in K through 12 in terms of paperwork and how they're enacted in a university setting. So again, understanding that that ties into healthcare, but also ties into kind of your future, I think is extremely important in terms of understanding how this kind of builds a foundation for your life and your future, and especially with the excitement of obtaining a job and going to work. Next slide, please. In employment, I think the tips are simple because it kind of, in my opinion, goes back to the community of supports that you build. And so preparation is key. For me, this was preparing in higher education and saying yes to a lot of opportunities that came my way. In my graduate classes, I also explored being a LEND public health fellow, which really gave me access to another world of public health that I didn't even consider, which was the clinical side. And really that helped me understand what state agencies, dealt with in terms of disability policy, and then what the clinicians deal with to be a better communicator in public health. And so preparation really just takes into account all of the opportunities and experiences that are available when you are a young adult, whether that's internships, fellowships, paid work experiences, volunteer experiences, but really encouraging the family member in your life to really say yes and take those steps to really practice again what the skills are that are needed to be gainfully employed. The second, sorry, can we go back to the slides again? Thank you. The last two talk a lot about the community that I keep harping on. I would say that mentorship was a key component into my employment success. Once you kind of, again, grow into the disability pride and discover this community that you belong to, you have leaders and adults who have been through this path that you can reach out to and gather ideas from. I can't say how grateful I am to have these mentors in my life. I don't know if you all are familiar with Judy Heumann. I sought her out when I moved to DC a couple of years ago. And, I had to really just suck it up and randomly email her and just tell her basically that I would love mentorship if she had the capacity to. And, I kind of figured she wouldn't respond. I mean, she's a highly sought after woman. But I knew that's who I wanted to be mentored by in policy and in advocacy. And I was very lucky to get a response from her. And I spent probably every weekend over a year and a half with her, just living life and hanging out, but then also, speaking the policy kind of lingo and planning on how to take over the world with disability employment and policy. But, encourage your adolescents and your young adults to seek out those mentors. And some of the mentors actually are unexpected. A big mentor of mine is actually my former pediatrician, believe it or not. And I had no idea. Obviously, no one goes into a doctor's appointment thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to work with my doctor in 10 years. But here we are. I'm on a grant with her now, and we are colleagues in so many of the university projects that we're doing on healthcare and health transition. But again, some of those mentors are not really that blatant or straightforward. Really get to know the people in your life who are willing to support these goals and these dreams of yours. I think that she remembered that I had told her I wanted to continue a path in healthcare, and she's really supported me ever since. I'm no longer her patient, of course, and that has been for the last maybe 7 years. But now we work together because she thinks of me for different opportunities, or she's actually the one who really encouraged me to get my master's in public health. So I would say, there are unnatural or unintuitive mentors out there too. And when you share the goals and the dreams of, your life and what you want to do in life, they naturally appear. And it has been an unexpected journey for me. So I think, in the disability community, there are so many leaders and so many mentors that are so happy to walk alongside you as you grow in your path. But then there's also folks in the community, allies, people you interact with daily who also can get you to where you want to be as well. You just have to kind of keep your eyes and ears out for that interest of theirs, because at least in my position, it wasn't like this straightforward my doctor is saying I want to mentor you. It just was natural. And now we're colleagues. So I think mentorship is so important, and networking. If there is an idea of what the young adult wants to do in employment, as a job, as a skill, get to know people in that field. So really, again, I was extra, interested in healthcare. So I really, really took the time to get to know so many of those in that field. But that goes with, networking while you're in school, or, while you're in your internship, while you're out in your, swim class, network, and really get to know some folks who, could teach you some things about employment preparation, about a certain field that you're interested in. So again, going back to that community, it's all about paying attention to who is around you and who's really interested and invested in your life and your goals. And so that is, I would say, are the key kind of points in employment. And how to be successful. It takes, I think, a little bit of being humble and asking for help, but also it takes some resiliency and courage to be able to accept that help as well, and know that there is a lot to learn and there are a lot of people rooting for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so, that's all I have here. I put my Instagram because I think so many people are curious of how my life is in action. So if you are a visual learner, you can go on there and follow my journey. But feel free to email me as well with any questions or thoughts that you have. And I'm open to, questions, hearing about your experiences as well in this kind of young adult journey that y'all are navigating, or maybe even full adult journey. So I'm just going to open it up now, and I guess everybody is in person. I'm wondering if there's any chat things that I need to read. Okay. Perfect. I am. Gosh, my youngest mentee is 8 years old, and I've known her since she was born. We are mainly buddies, but we do a lot of skill building together when we hang out. I think that, in our mentor relationship, it's really building her excitement and pride around having a disability and having people who are in your circle who are rooting for you to succeed. And so we have a lot of fun there. I'm also, a mentor to young adult women who are maybe just exploring, working, and independent living is a big one. How to really, modify things in an apartment or a dorm or whatnot so that you can succeed. And even, romantic relationships. There's not a lot of public conversation about that when you deal with a disability. And so I think it's important to kind of open up that platform for young folks who are exploring their identities moving forward. Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be great. I'm very open.
Hi, I'm curious, do you mentor people who are trying to start businesses to help others? Like, I'm trying to start a business in the transition field. And I would love to hear more on the policy, because I think the policy is truly what's tripping me up right now, research-wise, because, you try to research a policy, you go down a rabbit hole trying to research it. If I can just have it bend an ear here, maybe it won't be so hard.
Well, I don't blame the rabbit hole experience. I feel like I do that on the daily with policy. But yes, I am totally open to talking about all of the different policies around transition. It's vague on purpose, so that it makes it more confusing for the people navigating the systems. But I'm happy to talk more with you. You have my email and we can schedule a chat.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
I know you mentioned how you worked on legislation for money follows the person. I have lots of friends that live in Colorado, and today, as we've gone through different things about employment and waivers and things like that, I feel like that Colorado, in lots of ways, got a lot of things right in helping advance through money follows the person and some other ways, and helping not only the whole person, but the whole family that goes along with the whole person. So again, that money follows the person. And how do you feel like, compared to other states, what Colorado did right also helped as well with, in that same avenue, with employment through money follows the person?
Yeah, thank you. I hope that I heard everything, so I'm going to attempt to answer. I will say you are correct in terms of, Colorado getting a lot of it right. We're not perfect, but I know at the federal level, Colorado was often cited when we talked about home and community-based services, and when we talked about Medicaid. I think the biggest win in terms of employment in Colorado has been the Medicaid buy-in program limit expansion. And so in Colorado, I think you can make up to $95,000 per year and still buy into the Medicaid program and waiver services. That is an extreme game changer for people with disabilities here. I have friends, advocates who have fought really hard for that, but I don't know if we expected it to be a reality in our lifetime, and I think that's huge. As everybody in this room knows, living life with a disability is not cheap, and a job means so many things, but a normal, I guess, whatever average salary job means even less money for people with disabilities due to accommodations and healthcare bills and all of the other extra costs that you all know about. And so Colorado policymakers really listening to the community and understanding how disability impacts income and earnings and wages and impacts healthcare to be able to have access to that, to be able to work, I think is a really big win. And I feel really fortunate. In my time at Medicaid now, I think that I have formed amazing relationships with the leadership, that we can have trustworthy conversations about new ideas and new programs that are coming into place, and really, again, gaining that ear and knowledge from Medicaid leadership is invaluable. It's really amazing, and I did not expect that, as we all have our stereotypes of state government. So, when I joined this team, it just was life-changing for me back in the day. But I think the Medicaid buy-in in Colorado is exceptional.
I had the opportunity when we lived in Texas back in 2000, and I believe they came out with it like maybe in 2010. Texas did the Medicaid buy-in program, and we were able to buy in for our son because the waiting lists in Texas are so long for any kind of waivers, and that was so transformative to our family and our monthly income and our budget and our debt. And it was almost as we were paying for the service, but it was almost like the biggest boost that you could imagine. It was like my husband and I got like a huge bonus, is what it felt like. So yes, I, as someone who's experienced it, and I'm sure you experienced it then as well, like it is so transformative.
Oh my gosh, extremely. And I'm on the Medicaid buy-in right now with in conjunction with private health insurance, and it's just made a world of difference. I can't even explain it. And I don't think many people realize, when you need wraparound services, how to really navigate that in adulthood. And so with the buy-in, it's really showing that your state policies understand the community that they're serving, which is a really nice feeling. That's not often felt in policy. So, yeah.
Thank you.
We have an online comment side question from Jennifer McInerney. She says, "Big thank you for sharing your story and experience."
Thank you.
Hey, Teresa. Thank you so much for sharing. I've got a quick question. I'm really, really jealous that you got to spend that much one-on-one time with Judy Human. And so I'd love to know if you've archived any of those experiences, if you have anything on websites or her blog or whatever that you could point us in that direction.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like it's all in my head, but she actually interviewed me on her podcast series, and I'm happy to send you all that link. It's, her podcast is called The Human Perspective, I believe. And it's on Spotify. Has been amazing people she's interviewed on there, so I can't even believe that I'm among them as a guest. But Judy and I, what did we talk about? I think growing up with a disability and being from another culture, and how that really informed how I was raised and what my outlook on disability was like. So I highly recommend that. You all know, I'm sure, about the Netflix film Crip Camp. That's another one. That's really, even spending time with Judy, I had left DC when this film came out, and it really helped me put together what younger Judy was like, and how that made sense. In all of the time that I've spent with her, it just made complete sense. She was incredibly accommodating in our time, and we would get together with so many community members at dinner in DC, and she was just the natural leader. She would just start translating for people if they were using communication devices, and I was like, Judy, I can I can also hear them, and but it just is her innate trait. And Linda can speak to it too, because Judy adores Linda and her daughter Frances, and it just has been an amazing time. And Judy is really all about community building as well. While she enjoys talking about policy and how to rule the world, it's really about who are you and what makes you thrive and what do you need help with, so that she wants to spread the word in her entire community about new policy ideas. So I will send this group the podcast link. She also has a YouTube series. I love it, but it's really fun to watch her kind of interact with her guests as well. And then I think on her Facebook, she has something called Minute Mondays, where she kind of films a tiny little tidbit on different topics, but they're shortened versions of kind of her take on what the next steps are in the disability movement moving forward. So I hope that answers your question.
Hey, Teresa, this is Kyle and I over here. I don't know if you say hi, but Kyle and I would have had a couple, wanted to ask you a couple questions, maybe about some mutual people we may both know. I think you are working with the Kelsey, Michaela Connery out in the Bay Area. They're building the...
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then Allie Carrington, and well, anyway, yeah, so they all said to tell you hello. I told you we were speaking today, but we are, Kyle and I are on a journey to really help change the landscape a little bit here in Alabama regarding what the Kelsey does and affordable, accessible, and inclusive communities. So they have been working very closely, and I know you've got a lot of friends at ACL that really support what the Kelsey's doing, but we just wanted to share that, and Michaela said, and Allie said to make sure to tell you hello, because I told them you were going to be talking with us today, so just really appreciate everything you do for us in a policy standpoint, and I know the Kelsey.
Oh, thank you. It's so
Kelsey.
nice to meet you guys. And yes, Allie is a beloved friend of mine. I think she's amazing at the Kelsey. They're doing some just incredible work that, again, I don't expect to see in my lifetime. So it's just
Yeah, we never
evolving
thought
and,
that would
and
happen, but-
blowing my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I love that it's trickling to other states too.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, she may be coming to Alabama, so we're hoping maybe partner with her on some things, so it's
I
always
want,
down the road.
I want to
but-
come to Alabama. I tried for this and then COVID freaked me out.
Well, Allie wants to come too. She's got family in Montgomery, so she really wants to come.
Yeah, yes. Awesome. Linda, am I forgetting anything that you think I, should mention? Linda always has ideas. I know she does.
Well, my favorite story with Teresa, so my daughter Frances was up in DC, and she was, Frances wanted to be on her own. So I was, trying not to be the helicopter mom and just let her go. And then I get the call like in 2 weeks' notice. She goes, "Hey, I've got this trip to Virginia Beach with the program Life Rolls On to go surfing. You want to go?" And like set it all up and be there and come pick me up and take me and my friend to go water skiing and surfing. And I said, sure. So I picked Frances and Frances's service dog, Teresa, and her service dog, and piled them in a van and took them on a weekend. And it was so much fun. Enjoying the community and going out and spreading the
Yes,
love
the
in Virginia
best.
Beach.
I mean,
yeah.
seriously, this is what I'm talking about when building community. Like, how would I know, that I've become one of the greatest friends with Frances and now Linda, but yes, that is a wonderful memory, and I enjoyed that trip so much, and thanks for going with the flow.
We really appreciate you being here with us tonight and sharing everything that you do.
Awesome, thank you so much, and I think I have like a short session with some of you tomorrow, so looking forward to that, but thanks for having me, and please reach out if you have any other questions or want to meet.
Awesome. You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Recording stopped.
Okay, so that concludes our speaking session. I know on the agenda there's another activity down there. And for your homework, you were doing an elevator speech, and I know everybody has kind of done one. I don't have them printed off because I just don't have everybody's, and we didn't print them, but I know you have them. We're going to record them. We're going to have little sessions, and Clifton and Alex are going to record them for you. And like we talked about in November, get you used to being in front of the camera, let you see how you present and what it is, and for you walk. And this is just strictly for you. It's not to publish anywhere or take and do anything with. We're not going to view them. We're not going to critique them as a group. It's just for you to hear yourself, see it, and do. Because we want to practice that so we're comfortable being in front of legislators and anybody else that presented today that we need to talk with and partner with. So I'm not sure how they want to set that up, but we do want to kind of get that before everybody leaves. And Holly has the sign-in sheet too that we want to catch everybody before we leave. So we'll.
As they do their thing, they can sign it maybe, so we know who we've got and who we don't. Does that work? Alex, where do you
Could be.
We'll do it back here where our cameras are, so we'll just kind of shuffle through. We're recording these separately, so we'll go ahead and, so to everybody online, we will see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and end that live stream to the Facebook group. For anybody that's not a member of the Facebook group, Partners in Policymaking Alabama is a private Facebook